What's going on, guys? So I want to talk about Lost Ark's current population that they have right now. This is something that I've seen a lot of people really concerned about, seeing how low the player base has dropped. Now, obviously, I say low in the context of what it was because over 300,000 players is not low by any means, especially for MMO. That's great. It's one of the top MMOs just from that alone. But compared to where it was, it's obviously been in a decline. Now, this is something I've stated before that I do believe that Lost Ark can maintain over 200 to 300,000 players concurrently if they continue to release solid content, don't push pay to win super heavily. Of course, certain aspects of the game can be argued to be pay to win, but as long as they don't gatekeep so much content like Argos with pay to win features, I feel like they will keep players in the game. And over time, as they release more content from Korea and all the new classes that are over there, which are some of them are actually really cool, I will say that the population will probably stabilize at around 200,000 if they continue to keep good content coming out. So for the early weeks of March, Lost Ark actually kept a pretty steady population of around 700 in the lows to 800,000 concurrent players, which was a really healthy state to be in, as the game had their peak population, as you see, 1.3 million, which is obviously not going to maintain. No MMO reaches this peak of players during launch and then keeps that as that number. They're always going to be somewhat of a decline because people jump ship after people are tourists. They're just checking out the game for the first week or two and then they leave or quit, whatever. They find a new game, maybe Elden Ring or something like that. And either way, with Lost Ark keeping around that 800,000 concurrent players, it was looking pretty good. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that in early March, they actually lost a lot of players pretty quickly. And one of the reasons that people mentioned is that the bots. So Lost Ark announced in early March that they banned over 1 million bots, a lot of freaking bots. Now, you might not believe it, but there are still many bots in the game right now. If you log into the game, you'll see a ton of them just walking around all together. But they did ban a decent amount of them, and I really feel like it's just a uphill battle where Lost Ark will always have to fight the bots. They're always going to be coming in. They can only ban so many at a time. But with them banning over 1 million bots, a lot of the player base actually dropped. I believe it dropped like 150,000 at one point when they banned all these bots, because you have to figure if there's 800,000 players online, probably 2 to 300,000 of them are probably bots, honestly, or at least like 150 to 200,000. There's a lot of freaking bots in the game. Now, obviously, with them fighting the bots is respectable, and people want to see the bots gone in the game, of course. But when they do that, naturally, the player base is going to drop because there's a lot of freaking bots in the game. So you'll see that the player base actually dropped and dipped pretty significant. And then the icing on the cake was them releasing the Argos raid way too early, which made players either forced to spend a decent amount of money or 10 to 12 hours a day grinding to get their eye level to the certain point where they could actually compete in the raid and do content. Basically being gatekeeped out of content if they didn't grind like crazy or spend money, which really turned off a lot of players. Now, a little bit less than a week, Lost Ark team did respond, and they did actually buff the honing rates. They did a bunch of benefits and gifts to the player base and actually announced that they're sorry and they apologize. So obviously, they actually fixed the problem, and they really did give a lot of gifts and rewards to the player base. But it's one of those things where like this should have never happened in the first place, and once you do the damage is done. Of course, them responding quickly like they did is important because they would have been bleeding even more players right now as we speak, but you still did it. So when you have the combination of the bots and the whole Argos raid fiasco going on, it really made the player base drop to a lower rate than a lot of people were expecting. People expected the player base to dip down over the couple months, but not so quickly. Like, the game hasn't even been out for a 6-month time period, and we're already at a peak of 24 hours of 450,000 players, which again is not terrible, but compared to what it was, it is a pretty significant decrease. Does this mean the game's in a poor state or it's dead or it's going to shut down? Of course not. The game still has many players, as you can see. A 450,000 peak population for MMO is still very huge. Again, it's the top 5 MMO on the market right now with that amount of players on the game. And then besides the bots and the Argos raid, you also just have people quitting. I mean, that's just naturally going to happen. People are going to leave the game. They're going to lose interest. Maybe they got to level 50 and then they kind of got tired of the grind where you're just grinding eye level and upgrading gear, and then it fails because of the honing rates. And it could be a little tedious for endgame. So a lot of people just quit with that too. That's another factor. It doesn't even have to really tie into the Argos raid or anything like that. Overall though, as long as Lost Ark keeps over the 200,000 player mark, or even like 150,000 players, I feel like the game is doing great. Obviously, if it dips down to New World level where it's at like 40,000 players, it's going to be a little concerning for a new MMO that's coming out in the West. Obviously, it's not new, and Korea has been out for years, but for us, You know, this game should be able to keep over 200,000 players for at least over a year, in my opinion. As long as the content is coming out steadily and they're not screwing up like the Argos raid. If they do that again, you can expect more players to quit very quickly. But either way, I just wanted to kind of share this and show where Lost Ark is at. So 450,000 24-hour peak, and then 30 minutes ago, around 350,000 players. So looking between the 350 to 450,000 range. Either way, I appreciate you guys watching the video. What do you think about Lost Ark's population right now? And do you feel the game will keep declining, or you think you'll have a pretty steady rate around this healthy level of 300,000 players? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one real soon.